Let's talk Olympic lifting during pregnancy. And before I share my thoughts on Olympic lifting during pregnancy, I just want to be really clear that I will always advocate for women to train during pregnancy, as long as there's no contraindications, of course, because it's undisputed that the benefits of training during pregnancy are far-reaching. However, I will always challenge you to consider cost versus benefit when it comes to your exercise selection, or more specifically, what is the potential long-term cost of doing a specific exercise versus the short-term benefit of doing that exact exercise. And are there alternatives that can elicit the same or a similar response from your body, whose risk profile is lower for the pregnant body? And I think it's also really important to note that I'm not talking about elite level athletes whose sport is Olympic lifting, or elite athletes whose chosen sport includes Olympic lifting. Think CrossFit, right? Remember, these women are outliers, and I will always encourage us mere mortals to look to them for inspiration and motivation without adopting their actual training methodologies. And when it comes to Olympic lifting during pregnancy, from a purely mum-centric kind of safety perspective, I personally don't believe, given all of the vast changes happening in the pregnant body and the very dynamic, explosive nature of this lift, that you would be correctly containing intra-abdominal pressure in a way that doesn't place added and unnecessary stress on your pelvic floor and abdominal wall, but more specifically when it comes to your abdominal wall, your linear alba. Now, I know I've spoken about this a lot in all of my videos, but from my perspective, when training during pregnancy, ensuring that you maintain neutral intra-abdominal pressure as much as possible to protect your abdominals and pelvic floor is imperative, but especially so when it comes to your postpartum journey and making sure that it's a smooth one. And the studies even show that 100% of women have some type of abdominal separation by 35 weeks. And not only that, 66% of women who have abdominal separation have at least one related pelvic floor dysfunction. So when training during pregnancy, we really want to consider the potential cost versus the short-term benefit of what exercises you are selecting. Now, from a purely technical standpoint, and I'll use a video of me doing a power clean here, just so that you have a comparison. But when it comes to Olympic lifting during pregnancy, you actually need to alter the bar path to allow for your bump, right? So rather than the bar path being vertical and as close to your body as possible, which is what you want when you're Olympic lifting, to compensate for your bump, what you actually need to do is the bar needs to travel out and away from the body. So this is basically ingraining faulty movement patterns. You are training faulty movement patterns into your CNS, which you then have to go back and correct or unlearn when you return to Olympic lifting postnatally, which I'm sure would be one of your goals, right? Now, the Olympic lift has specific movements, and I'm not going to get super technical here, but basically you have the first pull, which is off the floor. Then you have the second pull, which ends in triple extension plus the shrug, right? Then you have the catch, which depending on whether you are doing a power clean or a full clean, the position is going to be different. Now, a power clean, you catch it higher to a full clean. Then you have the actual Olympic lift, which is a clean and jerk, which adds the overhead finish into the equation. And when it comes to training during pregnancy, for those who love to Olympic lift, like myself, and want to maintain strength in the movements while taking into consideration all of the vast physical changes that your body is going through, as well as taking out the dynamic nature, the explosive nature of the full Olympic lift, which can compromise your abdominals and pelvic floor, then my advice to you would be to break down these individual components and train them individually. And that's absolutely what I would be recommending to train during pregnancy, 100%. So we're going to take a little look at what breaking those movements down might look like. So the first pull, which is off the floor, can basically be broken down to a traditional or a conventional deadlift from the floor. Pretty simple, right? Now, as your pregnancy progresses, you may find that you're not actually as comfortable lifting from the floor, like your bump might get in the way. So you can then elevate the bar off boxes and limit the range of motion, which is I like to do during pregnancy anyway. And from a strength perspective, you're typically stronger when you have less range of motion. So this could be a really great way to maintain some of your strength through the later stages of your pregnancy. But of course, you want to make sure that you keep in relative ranges of your strength, of course. Don't forget that. And you can also go higher again with something like a rack pull, which again limits the range of motion, making it easier. So just there are 3 variations that you can do instead of the first pull. And for the sake of this video, I'm not going to do variations for the second pull, which is essentially a triple extension into a shrug, but you could just train that body weight, right? Now for the catch, you can use a dumbbell variation for the catch position. So changing from a bar to dumbbells. It still has you using similar dynamic movements of the catch without having to take into consideration your bump. And if you really wanted to challenge your core and the anti-rotational component of your core, you could do this in a single arm variation. And the single arm variation is actually quite advanced. So if you've got great control of your intra-abdominal pressure, then why not try this variation instead to challenge your core? Then you have the squat component of this lift. And for most of you who follow me, you already know that I love a box squat, and I've already done a video on this. So I won't go into a lot of detail here, but basically I love box squats because they limit your range of motion, you get consistent depth from your squat every single time, and the box adds an extra component of stability while also protecting your pelvic floor to win there, right? When it comes to breaking down the Olympic lift into movements, you have a few variations that you can use, right? So you can do a dumbbell front rack position box squat. And again, I love these as a variation for the pregnant population because it's not only challenging, but it's accessible to every training age from beginner to advanced. Now, if you're comfortable using a barbell doing front squats, by all means, you can continue doing this throughout your pregnancy. And then when you think about the overhead press variation, or you all know again, I love a half kneeling single arm dumbbell overhead press. Again, I've done a specific video on this, but this exercise is much more accessible for all training ages. It challenges anti-rotation, decreases the risk profile of your more traditional overhead press, and then on top of that, helps with your left to right side strength imbalances. So as you can see, I've broken down each of these, and I actually did this for a client and added a conditioning style component to this to get the heart rate up, and I believe it was pretty effective. Now, of course, you won't get the exact replica in terms of the explosive speed and strength that you get from Olympic lifting. But when it comes to pregnancy, I would always prefer to err on the side of caution to help make your return to doing what you love a lot smoother on the postnatal side of things. And in the long-term lens of your training journey, it's a small window where the right changes can make a huge difference. Or if you say that in another way, where ignoring the allowances that you need to make for your pregnant body, you can actually have long-term negative effects. So that's it from me today. I hope this video helped. And of course, if you want more in-depth pregnancy-specific content, you can apply to my complimentary but private community, the Preggy Training Crew. The link is in my bio.